History communicates to us what human beings are like when we do not strive to be the best versions of ourselves. History communicates to us what we are like when we rely on our default cognitive perceptions. We simply are too foolish to rely on our default. We simply are too weak and too biased and too prejudiced to rely on our default. There has to be a striving, there has to be an aspiration. And if you don't recognize the necessity of aspiration, I believe you will fall prey to discombobulation. So much of what we're seeing today is due to us not striving towards the virtues that matter. People talk about love all day. Love, love, love. I want to love. Why don't they don't that verse is so ironic. That verse that's spoken at weddings all the time that defines love. Love is patient, love is kind, love is this, love is that. Why don't you apply? Why aren't we emphasizing the application of loving patience, the application of loving reasonability and rationality, the application of loving the virtues that help assist and help contribute and supplement to our competency of loving? I strongly feel, I strongly believe we just do not get it, man. And we do not have the sermons. This is why I'm constantly, quote unquote, preaching this. We don't have the sermons. We don't have we don't have the routine. We don't have the habit of getting together to talk about this, to think about this, to reflect upon this. Our habit is it leads more towards the mindless, and I get it. The application of our will is towards things that we are obligated towards, that we're dutiful towards, and then you work, you do this, you do that, you do all these things that you have obligations towards, and then you have no more free will left. You have no more will to apply towards what I'm speaking to, because what I'm speaking to is essentially work. And we all feel as though, look, we're working enough. It's enough. My conclusion is, because we think this way, we just, as we're seeing, what human beings are going to need. I hate this because this is what happens in the everyday, in like just what I've noticed throughout my life. When a person is not willing to change due to them having an epiphany as a result of them seeing the dysfunction and the unhealthiness of their behaviors and the consequences of their behaviors, and how non-contributive it is to their life and how much it's not sustainable. What happens is, and this actually happened to me in my mid-20s, I had two rock bottoms. Unfortunately, some of us can't learn from being told, "Hey, if you put your hand on the stove, it will burn." Some of us have to get burned. Some of us have to experience rock bottom. Some of us have to experience, unfortunately, not even some of us. Many of us have to experience trauma, and we have to experience just complete rock bottom hardship in order for us to change. And what's even more messed up is many of us, it's not even enough. Rock bottom hardship is not even enough to get us changed. We know many people who are like at the rock bottom, and that's not even enough. But I would really, really, really urge and recommend that you don't wait until it gets to that point. It doesn't need to get to that point. There is opportunity today. What I see with people, everyday people, everyone's so pessimistic and cynical. They're pessimistic and cynical towards life being better for them, but they define life ornamentally. They define life by stuff. They define life. There's people that I've seen them outright say, "A life is doing this and doing that." Who told you that? That's just what annoys me. Who told you that a life could be literally you going out into the woods and just living the rest of your life in there if you can do it sustainably? A life is merely existing. I think, therefore I am. You are an existing sentient being. Do we look at dogs and pity them because they can't contemplate mortgages and degrees and jobs and obligations? Like, do you pity animals? No. In fact, I've seen people literally say, I heard this one girl say, and I ain't mad at her, I get it. She said she'd literally rather be a roach because a roach ain't got to pay bills. I hear you. And I get that. So stop thinking a life has to be all of these ornamental ass, superficial, shallow trappings, materialistic trappings, man. I'm not saying that shelter doesn't matter. I'm not saying that certain material aspects don't matter. I'm saying that that's where your emphasis and that's where your investment is. You're screwed. You are screwed. You are so much better off emphasizing within yourself a kind of richness, a richness that comes from a kind of positivity, and a kind of positivity that comes from a particular kind of mentality, a mentality that is fixated on gratefulness and on doing your best, on effort, on sleep, nourishment, physical activity, and healthy conversation. A mentality that is completely and utterly interested in harmony and in being the best version of yourself for the sake of goodness. That's what we all want. That's what we all need. That's what we all would like. So you have to reciprocate. You can't be somebody talking about you want goodness in your life, but you're not doing your best to contribute to the goodness. You can't be somebody talking about you want goodness in your life, but you're so shallow, you're so materialistic, you're not going deeper, you're not sitting in the silence, you're not restoring yourself. You can't even enjoy anything properly. You can't even perceive properly unless you're rested. Unless you're properly rested and properly nourished. You think it's nothing just to drink a soda. You think it's nothing to eat some junk food. And it's everything. It's everything to not be nourishing yourself properly. It's everything to not be getting your rest. It's everything to not care about communicating in a precise, vulnerable, transparent way. Self-honesty is crucial. We have to get our minds right, man. You got to get your mind right, or else you're going to when the lack thereof has profound consequences on your life, don't be surprised. That being said, you can literally do everything right, quote unquote, and still experience hardship. But that life is tragic first, beautiful second. Life is tragic first, beautiful second. I'm going to say this last thing. I see these compilations of people going through hardship, and this one woman was talking about how she lost her job and she's just looking to God. God, tell me what to do. God doesn't. It was something about they lost a car, and God, I'm just waiting for your answer. Have an appreciation for reasonability at the practical level. To wait for quote unquote God to tell you about what you should be. Put some respect. Do you think God doesn't want you to utilize your faculty of rationality and reason? God didn't want you to buy a car that you could never afford to begin with. God wanted you to buy a reliable vehicle. God wanted you to pay for a reliable vehicle, perhaps a Toyota, perhaps a Mazda, at a dealership with stellar reviews, to ensure that your car didn't break down after you drove it for about 20 minutes or like a couple of days. And it's about the probability. God wants you to be healthy. God wants you to get your sleep, nourishment, physical activity, and engage in healthy conversations. This thing about what I see people do is they outsource their capacity to think in a practical, reasonable way to the notion, to the prospect of God. And it annoys me so much because I used to be highly susceptible to unreasonability. And that point in my life, that stage of my life was the worst phase of my life because it was all just assumption. It was, if you do believe in God, then believe that God wants you to utilize your faculties to the utmost. You people mind read God to serve their laziness so often, not always, but often. Let's be our best. Let's be our best. Sleep, nourishment, physical activity, healthy conversations. Life is a fight. Life is tragic first, beautiful second. But let's still try.